Today we're going to talk about how you can encourage parents to parent in a very tech and online world. Are you ready? Because it's time.
You're listening to the Church Digital Sidekick Podcast, part of the TCD Podcast Network.
Hey heroes, my name is Tom Pounder and this is the Church Digital Sidekick Podcast. This is the podcast where I bring on ministry leaders and we talk about how you can do ministry more effectively in this very digital and online world. And let's just be honest, parenting is really hard. I have 4 of my own, and parenting is very hard. When they're very little, they're hard. When they're older, it's hard. It just looks different older than it does younger. And one of the things that makes it look a little bit different is technology. You know, again, parenting is hard. Technology makes it a little bit harder. So how do you parent in this very tech world? And how can you, as a minister, whether you're an online minister, family minister, children's minister, student minister, how can you encourage parents to parent in this very digital and online world? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today because I have my friend Matt McKee in. Matt's been on the podcast before, but a number of years ago. He is an entrepreneur and he is a guy who loves helping people with technology, in particular with parents with technology. He's got a great Facebook group that I'm going to highlight in the show notes and that we're going to talk about actually in the interview. But he also has lots of different resources that will help parents parent in a very tech and digital world. So how can you do it? That's what Matt and I talk about in today's interview. But before we do that, I just want to highlight theChurch.digital. At theChurch.digital, we've got lots of different resources, blogs, podcasts. We've got coaching and cohorts, all the different tools that will help you in your ministry minister to those in this very digital and online world. So I really encourage you to check out theChurch.digital. I've got the links in the show notes, but about different coaching, different podcasts that you can check out, all designed to help you in your ministry world. And so we would love for you to check out theChurch.digital today. All right, so now let's get in the interview right now with Matt McKee and learn how we can equip and help parents parent in this very digital and online world. All right, with me right now is Matt McKee. Matt, how are you?
I'm good, Tom. Thanks so much for having me today. I love being able to hang out with you and talk about tech because that's what we do these days.
That's right. We're on tech right now, and that's kind of what we do. When I even first met you, I'll ask you to introduce yourself for anybody who may not know who you are, but when I first met you, it was through Orange, and but you were always very tech guy. Like I think the first time I met you, you were all into tech and everything, and I looked at you and I was like, oh, like you're awesome. So
that's funny. Back I stood in line for the very first iPhone back in 2007, and I hacked it. I was running an app store on it before the app store ever opened up. I used to run a app company where we built thousands of apps, in a very short amount of time. And I've been in the intersection of ministry and technology and really just trying to think through the question of how do you leverage innovation for the sake of good? Yeah. And that question really has driven me in a bunch of different directions, not only helping churches and nonprofits, but also helping parents. I try to deal with technology and anybody else that's like, hey, I've helped a bunch of different corporations and stuff too. But at the heart of it all, it really is, how do you leverage innovation for the sake of good? And I think if more people are trying to answer that question, like yourself, because Tom, you are as well, I think our world would be a much better place.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people tend to be a little bit afraid of technology and look for all the bad things. And what I like is to look for the good things, but you're actually doing some really awesome things, and you've been doing awesome things for a while. So why don't you tell people a little bit about what you do right now?
Yeah, so I work with a company called Bark. Bark is an artificial intelligence company that does parental controls and parental intelligence. And what I mean by that is not only can it block and filter and put time limits on stuff, but it really is giving you insights into a bunch of different things that your kids could be doing online or experiencing online, such as, here's an alert around cyberbullying or suicidal ideation or even drug use or all of these different things that could be objectionable or could be even obscene, like adult material that your kid could be, just curious. they come along and they find it, and then you're sending an alert that says, hey, here's what they saw, and here's the conversation to have after it. So it's been a journey, to say the least, because that product is for families, but then there's also a product for schools and for education, and it now covers over 6 million kids throughout the U.S., which is something that very proud of, to say that we're keeping that many kids safe, but also as it grows and as it expands, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, see, that's awesome. And you were actually part of the first Circle launch, right? I mean, so yeah.
Yeah, I've been in this space for quite some time. Yeah, there was a product called Circle with Disney. At that time, I was helping run basically a Shark Tank event, and I went out to go see if I could find a company that was doing something innovative in terms of parental controls. Circle had a failed Kickstarter. It looked like they were going to die on the vine, like many other startups. And I brought them to Atlanta, helped them raise their first round of funding, and then joined the founding team to then launch and do a deal with Disney and a bunch of other stuff. So yeah, that company put me in 18 different countries in like 2 years.
Yeah.
It was my hair was on fire, and helping people all over the world, just try to keep their kids safe. And it's been very missional for me, and it's not just just something that I happen to do today. It's something that I've been doing for years.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, every time I saw a circle for the longest time, I just thought immediately of you. And so it was just kind of neat. Okay, well, let's talk about keeping kids safe and parents. Again, you've been in this space for a really long time. You have a book called Parent Chat, and you went around for different churches sharing about that. But I think a lot of times right now, getting a phone is a rite of passage for students. I know
Yeah.
that every parent's different. I gave my kids, they're older now, their first phone when they went into middle school. And I felt like, okay, elementary school, you didn't need one, but middle school, you need one. But just giving them a phone, like me giving them a phone, is probably not the best thing to do. What should you be aware of as a parent thinking about internet security and giving a phone to your kid?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go back on you just a little bit, and look at something that you said earlier, which was most people see technology as bad, and in reality, technology is just a mirror. Like by itself, it's just going to hang there. It's not going to do much of anything. And then when you engage with it, you're going to see a reflection, and you're going to see a reflection of your humanity. And too often we look into the mirror and we see all the things that are bad. We see the freckles we don't like. We see, the hair that's out of place. Like we see all of the bad, which is why when we look at tech, we go, man, can you believe all of this bad that's happening in technology? And I hope that we can change the mindset to, look, it's not all bad. What you do with the mirror is you don't take it off the wall and throw it away. Instead, you look in the mirror and you say, okay, what's out of place and what do I need to change? And anytime we look at tech as a parent, I think that's one of the biggest things is not only are we looking to our kids to say, what do we need to change or what's out of place, but we also need to have that reflection on ourselves. And what we model is what our kids are going to do. And we know this, we've known this for quite some time, like modeling matters more. So before you ever give your kid a device, even if they're 3 years old, they've noticed what you've done. Like they've noticed how much you've been on your phone at the dinner table. They've noticed like all the different ways that you've used tech and how much you value tech. So much so that you have a relationship with it. Like if I was to take away your phone for 2 weeks, you'd be like, oh, like you're addicted and you don't even know it. And that's fine. So before you hand a device to your kid, the first thing you have to do is go, okay, I need to do a reflection on myself and see really how I am dealing with technology on my own. Then we can ask the question of, hey, what does this look like to give it to my child? And here's what I advocate for. And it's very similar to the whole driver's permits. And maybe you've heard this analogy before, but at age 15, my oldest son, he went and took a test And they didn't even ask him if he had a car. They didn't ask him anything. They asked him, hey, do you know what these road signs are? And, he took this test, and then they handed him a piece of plastic and said, congratulations, for the next year, your parents are responsible for you. So much so that in my state, I didn't even have to get special insurance. They're like, no, if he makes any mistakes, it's on you as a parent. Now, can you imagine if the phone companies, all the wireless companies, did the same exact thing? Hey, look, your kid, before we're going to give them this device, they have to take a test. Here's how you plug it in. Here's all the warning signs that they have to be able to do. And when we hand them this device for the first year that they have that device, we expect you to not only be engaged, to sit alongside with them, to make sure you're scared to death, to go along with them, just like you were in a car. And, if anything bad happens, it's on you as the parents. I think it makes a lot more sense. And I think it makes a lot, not for wireless companies to do that, don't get me wrong, but that analogy of having to sit alongside, going with your kid for the first year to say, here's what we're going to do as a family. Here's the expectations. Here's all the different things that we're going to look at when it comes to tech and when it comes to platforms. And look, there's a bunch of different things that I talk about. You said something about my book, Parent Chat. I've actually written another book since then called Parenting in a Tech World. And I did that book with my co-author. Her name's Titania Jordan, because I thought it was really important to get a mom's perspective and not just my wife's, right? Because my wife's, like, we have a very similar perspective. I mean, we've been married now for over 22 years, but to get someone else's perspective to say, hey, here's what, I'm seeing, and here's how I parent. So it has a lot of nuggets in there for parents as well. So just to kind of bring us up to speed, look at technology as you would a mirror. And then also, when you introduce it, be ready to walk alongside and ride alongside your kids for at least that first year, so that you can build trust to then move on. So there you go.
Yeah, see, I like what you were talking about just there, that in a sense, it was a very proactive form of parenting with technology. The parent is taking a proactive approach. I've seen a lot, and I can say this in my own instance as well. I'm often reactionary. Like when I see my kid do something with technology, I'm like, okay, I'm deleting Instagram, I'm deleting Snapchat, I'm doing this. We're going to be doing screen time limits. So it's very proactive versus very reactionary. How would you coach parents as they're struggling with that? Again, I like what you said. Before you give them that thing, the smartphone, make sure you go over certain things. What else would you encourage parents to do?
Well, you have to know that parents and kids look at technology in two totally different ways, and they actually ask different questions.
Hmm.
We as parents, we look at tech and we ask the question, what will this do for me? Like, it's very effective, very efficient. It's one of those questions that actually has a purpose. Like, we look at technology with a purpose, and we want that purpose to help us be more effective and to be more efficient. And if it really wasn't doing that, then we wouldn't pay the bill every month.
Mhm.
Like, we wouldn't pay for the connection. We wouldn't pay for all the things that we pay for to interact with technology. But because of the promise of tech, we can learn anything at any time. We can connect to anyone at any time. All of these different things, we're willing to give all of those purposes, not only our time and our energy, but also, our money. Now, think about kids. Our question as adults was, hey, what will this do for me? Kids have the question, what will this do?
Hmm.
There's no purpose. Like, there is nothing there that says, okay, I need to be more efficient or more effective. Like, you hand a 15-year-old some device, they're not going to go, wow, I'm really hoping that this has some purpose for me. Like, no, they're going to go explore, because that's what kids do.
Yeah.
Their question is much more curious. So when I coach parents to look at tech, I have to get them to ask the question that their kids are asking. And I have to help parents identify the purpose behind why they want their kids on that device and communicate that to them. So as a parent, I need you to be more curious. And also as a kid, if you're helping coach kids, you're trying to coach them on the purpose behind this. One of the things that parents get way caught up on is this idea of screen time and how much time should my kid be on a screen and how much, at this age versus that age. And I really wish we'd stop asking that question. And the reason I say that is because if we can get to what is the purpose behind that screen, or what's the purpose behind that app, it will totally change the way you look at screen time. I mean, it could be that your kid, because of its purpose, needs to be on, a video game for 2 hours, which is nuts to even think through. But my son, who is a freshman in high school today, looks and plays this video game called Rocket League. He's on our high school team. And yes, he had to get a physical to be a part of, as an e-athlete, to be a part of the team for Rocket League, which is hilarious to me, right? Like, why did we have to go get a physical? Like, hey, thumbs, there you go. So anyway, he's an athlete in the school. We had to pay for a uniform. Like, he got warm-ups, and they went to state this past semester. His team ended up 8th in the state. The number 1 team at his school ended up 1st in the state. So these kids are getting scholarship opportunities and scholarships to play a video game called Rocket League. And I'm not talking about small schools. I'm talking D1 schools you've heard of, which is pretty nutty. So I could make the case that my son should be spending more screen time than any other kid, not because, of anything else, except we're looking at him in terms of training, in terms of review, in terms of getting better, and all of these different aspects, because it's a purpose. So again, you have to look at it in a different way. And that's one of the very first things in terms of coaching parents and helping parents understand that it's not all just, hey, they're not, doing, or it's not all kids doing bad things on technology. And if they are, then it means that you've given them a lack of purpose. And that's one of the first things that you need to do as a parent.
Gosh, we up here in Virginia, we just started esports as well, and a lot of our high schools are getting into esports as well, and I'm seeing more and more of this stuff, and I think it's really cool. It provides these kids with different skill sets an opportunity to really participate in their high schools, and I think it's fantastic. Again, I like this whole idea of coaching parents and whatnot. Are there resources out there? Are there things, because I think a lot of times there becomes a lot of chatter between the parents and saying, oh, like back in the day, Snapchat, it's terrible. You should not get on Snapchat. And there was this big revolt against Snapchat. And then the kids wanted to get on Snapchat. The parents wanted it off. Are there resources out there where parents who are legitimately looking to say, how do I know if this app is right? Or how do I know if this thing is right? Where could they go for that kind of information?
Yeah, so we started this little group on Facebook called Parenting in a Tech World. Same name as our book, and we now have to pay full-time community managers to help with this group because it's now over 170,000 parents.
Whoa.
And yeah, those parents. You want to talk about being involved, and I will say this. The reason why, we hire all these, community managers that do an unbelievable, fabulous job is to make sure it's as positive as possible and without as much judgment as possible. I've been in too many groups and too many settings where, you go in and all it is a bunch of ads for a bunch of different stuff. We keep those out. Or it's a bunch, hey, I really have this issue. Like, what do you think about this app? Or how did my kid do that with a Ring camera? Like, how in the world did they hack it? And now they know everything that's happening in our house. Like all these different things that are happening that you really have a question about. Well, you can go in there and 500 to 2,000 parents are going to answer your question. Like, it's going to be like, hey, here's my perspective and all these different things. But if you do get sideways, just know this, you will get kicked out. And a lot of people have been kicked out. Even friends of mine have been kicked out. And they're like, hey, what did I do wrong? And I'm like, well, I can point to you what you did wrong. Like, you went too negative, you got too judgmental. So we try to make it as safe as possible. and then and then you can say you're sorry, and get back in. But there is a safe place, and it's called Parenting in a Tech World. It is a Facebook group, if you don't mind being on Facebook, and it's a great place. It's a great place for you.
Facebook's a great place for groups. I'm a part of a lot of different groups that I go and ask questions a whole bunch of times. And again, you don't want to be a part of a group that goes sideways and starts getting all negative and everything. So to have a place for parents to come and ask legitimate questions and really get some research done there is fantastic. Okay, well, as we just continue, kind of getting towards the wrap up part, what else would you do, or how else would you coach parents right now in this tech world that we're living in?
Yeah, when you look at technology, the best thing you're going to be able to do as a parent is ask better questions. And if I could just get parents to do this one question, I think it would change not only how they look at tech, but it really would change the relationship that they have with their kid. And that question is, can you teach me how? Can you teach me how that app works? Can you teach me how that device works? Can you teach me how you did that? Like, I have no clue. And what you're going to do is, when you enter into that conversation with your child in that posture, in that manner, you will get to see how they look at technology through their eyes, which is truly invaluable, because then you'll be able to say, okay, this is their interest. This is what they are really curious about. This is really what they were looking for, even though they may have ended up someplace that they didn't even want to end up. Mm-hmm. So when you're able to do that, can you teach me how? Then you're going to be able to be uncomfortable for a bit, but you're going to learn a lot as a parent. And it will teach you a lot about technology in ways that you never thought possible. So that question, along with, hey, if you could create anything in the world, what would you create? If they're not creators, if you could collect anything in the world, what would you collect? And you're going to start a Pinterest board with them, and you're going to do things with your kid. Or if you could compete at anything in the world, what would you compete at? And don't be surprised if they do pick some game like Rocket League, or even Fortnite if they're old enough. And you look and you say, okay, I played the game. I ended up in a bush the whole time. Somehow I ended up third. I didn't even like the game, but at least I saw it through my kids' eyes, and I understand why they like it. Now, what are the parameters we need? And here's really the final thing for you. The goal for you as a parent and your kid when it comes to tech is for when they leave your house, yes, they should leave your house. When they leave your house, that they have self-identified what needs to be filtered, what needs to be blocked, and what needs to be limited. You can't do that for them. So when they're 8, you're going to be very directive. When they're 16, you're going to be very influential in their lives, so that when they're going off, they are a good digital citizen that knows, yeah, there's certain things, even as an adult, I'm going to need to limit, I'm going to need to block, and I'm going to need to filter in my life. Yeah. If that can happen, then look, I think we've won as a parent.
Yeah, man, this is awesome, man. You just gave us so much great stuff. And I think it's funny too, because I'm the online guy at my church. I'm the tech guy. I consider myself more pastoral than I do online. And I love technology, but I've asked my girls many different times, hey, how do you do this on here? And I feel stupid in asking, because I'm supposed to know that stuff. But in reality, it actually creates a good time for me to have a conversation with my daughters. And again, then it could create shared experiences. I know that, one of my daughters likes to play Xbox, and she plays Madden football. And I will sit down and watch her play, and she really enjoys me watching her play. And I think we can become a part of those experiences, and it can really take our relationship to a whole different level. And they know that they can appreciate us a little bit more. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, Matt, this has been awesome. I could probably talk to you for a really, really, really long time. But where can people find you coming up? Give me your social media stuff. And also, I know you're speaking at Orange. So give me a highlight about what you're going to be talking about at Orange.
Yeah, so you can find me, Matt McKee, MattMckee, on Twitter, on Instagram. I'm putting daily content out there for parents, so they can, kind of wrestle with this thing called parenting in the tech world. You can look us up at parenting.tech. It's not .com, parenting.tech. You can find out about our book and a bunch of other resources. We actually have a master course that Orange put out through their Parent Q, store. You can find that there. And look, we did over 2 hours of video. It's a 60-page workbook. Like, if you're really like, I want to solve this, that's for you. Like, go get the master course. Again, it's called Parenting in a Tech World. I am going to be speaking at Orange. I'm actually going to be speaking at a bunch of different churches around. So if your church is interested, to Tanya, Jordan, and I, my co-author, we're going to different schools, different churches coming up. We're fairly booked over the next couple months, and which is exciting. I mean, you never know where you're going to find us. And what's nuts, this topic is so cool that Titania is she's been on Good Morning America now, I think 3 times this year, the Today Show, Wall Street Journal, like all these different places. She takes all the press deals, and I'll take a lot of the speaking gigs. But it's been it's been fun to help as many parents as we can.
No, that's awesome. And I will say this, I said this to you before as well, but the biggest parent meeting that I ever had come out was when we would do discussions on social media, and we would bring in an expert to talk about social media or online stuff, and parents just wanted to hear it. So I know that, if you want to have Matt share and his team share with you, I'll include all his links in the show notes, so you'll be able to connect with him. And I mean, you'll have to book him up early since he's he's got all those gigs going. But that'd be awesome. And if you're at the Orange Conference, I know Matt's very personable, so definitely connect with him there. I'm going to miss it this year, and so I'll be bummed not to see you there.
Well, I'll miss you there, Tom. But hey, it doesn't mean that we can't do more of this. Using technology to help build those relationships has been key. If we learn nothing else when the world shut down.
Yeah, that is 100% true. So, well, Matt, as always, it's great talking to you. So thanks very much for being with me today.
Thanks, Tom.
All right. So what do you think of the conversation? Again, I haven't talked to Matt in a number of years. We follow each other on social media and everything like that. But it was just awesome talking with him. He's so personal. He's so relatable. And again, he's got kids of his own, so he knows all the stuff that he's talking about, and he loves technology. So what stood out to you from this conversation today? I would love to hear your thoughts on it. You can put it in the comment section below, or you can hit me up on Twitter at @TAPounder. Matt's on Twitter as well, and I've got his Twitter links in the show notes. But we would love to hear from you. What did you learn from it? What questions do you have? Hit us up. We'd love to talk to you a little bit more and carry this conversation on a little bit more online. All right, heroes, well, that wraps it up for another Church Digital Sidekick podcast. As always, if you enjoyed the podcast, definitely subscribe to it. It's on YouTube. It's on iTunes. It's on Spotify. Go to thechurch.digital. You can find all that content there, including some of my blogs. We would love for you to check that out, and all the other resources and content there at thechurch.digital. All right, heroes, well, I hope you have a great rest of your day, a great rest of the week. Until next time, have a great one.